Hey all, Pete here, doing my second video in my gun series. And just as I said in my first video, the purpose of these videos is not to try to convince somebody to think the way I do about firearms. It's to promote education, not persuasion. And it's to clarify and better define a lot of the stuff that's being said in the media. It's my hope that gun folks and anti-gun folks alike can watch my videos and gain something from them, even if you don't agree with me. To be able to watch my video and go, oh, okay, I understand better what they mean when they say that, or I see how that term's being misused, or oh, I have a better understanding of how firearms operate, so that might help my dialogue with somebody who's on the other side of this issue. We might be able to have a better discussion because I have a better understanding of things, okay? I promise to be respectful in my videos. I'm not out to try to make anybody feel stupid. I ask if you leave me comments to please be respectful with me as well. As long as you're respectful, I welcome your comments, even if you disagree with me. If you're a jerk, I'm just going to delete them because I don't have time for more jerks in my life, okay? Now, real quick, my last video, I made a huge gaffe, and I'm still laughing at myself. But when I was talking about the World War II rifle, the M1 Garand, I referred to it as a bolt-action rifle, and it is not a bolt-action rifle. Remember, in my first video, we talked about bolt-action rifles, right? Remember this one? Bolt-action. This is the bolt, okay? The M1 Garand was a and is a semi-auto rifle, all right? So I was thinking in my mind about the World War I rifles while I was talking about the M1 Garand. And so in my mind, I was thinking about the Soviet Mosin Nagant, or the Springfield, the 1903, or any of the Mausers. That's where my mind was, and I was talking about M1 Garand. So I apologize for that gaffe. I corrected it in the video description of my first video, and I put a comment in as well. Okay, so today we're going to talk about terminology, and some statements that get made a lot of times that are not accurate, and I'm just going to correct them. Okay, I'm not saying the people that make them are stupid. All I'm doing is just going to correct them so that if you watch this video, when you hear it, you're like, yeah, that's not accurate. That's not entirely accurate. Okay, we're also going to talk a little bit about some terms that get thrown around a lot just in general over the years that I hear that aren't true either, or that people don't necessarily understand what they mean, maybe. Okay, we're going to show you. I got a couple guns out to show you some comparisons on some things, and then at the end, I'm going to talk a little bit about why I own one of the firearms that I own. Okay, all right. So let's first start with some of these terms that get thrown around. All right, here we go. First, high caliber. Okay, this gets said a lot. High caliber. I've seen it lately from several politicians who are saying there's no need for high caliber firearms. I've seen family members say this. There's absolutely zero reason to have a high caliber firearm. There's no reason for a civilian. They don't have any practical civilian application. Okay, and I think I'm sure some of these folks are well intentioned, but I don't think they mean what they think they mean with those words, high caliber. A caliber of a round refers to the size of the bullet. So the bigger the bullet, the higher the caliber. Okay, so here's a 22 long rifle. 22 long rifle caliber bullet. Pretty small, isn't it? Here's a 223 Remington caliber. Okay, bullets are about the same size. They're both a 22 caliber bullet. Okay, now let's take another one out here. Here's a 308 Winchester caliber. See the difference? Whoops. See the difference? Higher caliber, right? Okay, you could go up to a 40 caliber or a 50 caliber bullet, and every time you go up, the caliber's higher. Okay, and so a 30 caliber bullet like this 308 Winchester, to many would be considered a high caliber. Okay, but it does have an application. I hunt with a 308. So remember this one from yesterday? This old lever action 308, right? Double check. We're good. Okay, so this is a hunting rifle. This is what someone would refer to as a deer rifle. It's a deer rifle. You hear that word, their deer rifle, dad's deer rifle. When they say that, they're usually talking about a 243, a 270, a 25-06, a 6mm, a 7mm, 308, 300 Savage, 300 Win Mag, 270, 30-06. Any of those calibers in there that are popular hunting calibers. Okay, and really from 30 caliber up, those would be considered high calibers. Okay, so to say there's no application for a 30 caliber or for a high caliber gun, it's not true. Now, if we're talking about like a 50 caliber machine gun, we could argue whether there's an application for a civilian to own one of those. I think we might find some common ground there, but there's some people you might not find common ground with. But anyway. But when we're talking 30 caliber bullets, like, no, those are a higher caliber than a 223, and there is a practical application for them in hunting. Okay, so be careful with words like high caliber and high power. High power sounds scary. So remember yesterday, check, Browning high power 9mm. Okay, the high power doesn't make this a scarier gun. Okay. Generally, when we're talking about high power, we're talking about velocity. Okay, generally. And we get more velocity by loading a hotter load, by more powder. Okay, and so the velocity is the speed the bullet travels. Okay, so I think a lot of times what people mean when they say high power or high caliber is they mean high velocity. All right, now, let me give you some examples of this. Okay, so let's start with the 22 long rifle. 22 long rifle. Okay, 22 long rifle travels max about 1,100, 1,200 feet per second. Okay, it's not very fast. It's really not very fast. Okay, now the 223. Remember this guy? 223, right here. 223. Okay, bolt action, clear. This guy can travel up to around 3,000 feet per second. Okay, about 3,000 feet per second. You go up to the 22-250. I don't own one, but they look a lot like a 223 cartridge, but the brass is bigger because it holds more powder. They'll go up to 4,000 feet per second. Real fast travelers. And then my favorite, which I don't own, I wish I did, the 220 Swift, you can load that up to about 4,600 feet per second. Okay, that baby flies. All right. Now, what do you use these guns for? Well, my 223 right here is a Varmint gun. Okay, it's for coyotes. It's for coyotes. It's for other varmints, other critters like jackrabbits, or in Idaho we have rock chucks. They're a kind of marmot that raise hell on the fields and on the farmlands. So, I go out and shoot several hundred of them every year, every spring for some farmers. And 223, 22-250, 220 Swift are all very popular varmint and predator rifles because they shoot fast and they shoot flat. Okay, so the trajectory of the rounds are flat and they are fast. A 30 caliber bullet, like a 308, is slower and it shoots in more of an arc. Its trajectory is more of an arc. Okay, and so for varmints, for predators like coyotes and stuff, these are great guns because they're fast shooting, bullet gets there quick, and they shoot flat. Okay, and they do minimal damage. So I don't want to blow a big hole in my coyotes because I save the pelts and sell them. And so this little bullet is a VMAX. It's a 55 grain VMAX. It's designed to penetrate quickly, and then once it penetrates the animal, it expands quickly to do the maximum amount of damage inside the animal to kill it quickly. We want a quick kill. We don't want animals to be shot and be alive. We want them to be shot, die quickly, right there. Boom, lights out, okay? So that's what a 55 grain VMAX does. All right. And so thinking, no, stay with me. 223, right? One of the most popular varmint guns out there. An AR-15 is a 223 caliber. It's the equivalent is the NATO 5.56. Okay. And so to say a 220, an AR-15 caliber rifle has no place in civilian use, well, yes, it does. Okay, this is the same caliber I'm holding right here. It's just a different rifle. This is a bolt action. An AR-15 is a semi-auto, and I explained the difference between those two in my first video. Okay, this has a small internal magazine that holds 4 rounds. An AR-15 has an external magazine that can hold up to, in excess of 30 rounds. Okay, so there's some functional differences. Semi-auto, gas-operated AR-15 versus a bolt action, 223, but the same ammo. It's the same caliber. All right, and so sometimes I think what people mean when they say high caliber or high power is high velocity. But just because it's high velocity doesn't mean it only has a military application, because it's just not true. All right. So that's my speech on high caliber versus high velocity. All right. Now let's go into bullet size and type. So a lot of the damage that's done by a bullet when it enters the body, the projectiles, the bullet, this part, when it enters a body of an animal or a person, has to do with the kind of ammunition it is. Now, velocity matters, right? Because something traveling really, really fast that hits you is going to have more of an effect on you, than necessarily something traveling really, really slow. But they'll both kill you just as dead. All right? And with coyotes, like I said, I use a 223 with a VMAX point because the bullet's designed to penetrate about yay far, and then it just spreads. It just opens up and it just destroys. So I'm always shooting at the vitals on a coyote, and that bullet gets into the lungs, boom, animal's down, it's over. There's no suffering. It's instant, okay? Okay, so that's what I use. Now, they make another kind of bullets called full metal jacket bullets. They're a very popular bullet for target shooting, and what they are is a lead bullet surrounded by a harder metal. Okay, so the jacket that's over the lead, it's like the lead has a jacket of stronger, harder metal. Okay? And they were designed for the military mainly because they have less malfunctions with them, because the lead doesn't get deformed. So you don't have problems with them feeding from the magazine into the barrel. They also leave less lead deposits inside the barrels. So, they're just cleaner to shoot, Now, they have some disadvantages. Or one other advantage to the military is they will shoot through light cover. So a full metal jacket round will go easier through a piece of plywood or real thin, like galvanized metal or something like that. Okay, they're not armor piercing. They're not going to go through steel, but they can penetrate some light things easier. Okay, so full metal jackets are really popular with civilians too because they're cheap. They feed well. They shoot very straight. And as long as you have a good backstop, you don't have to worry about it. Disadvantages to full metal jacket rounds is that if you don't have a good backstop or you hit a rock or something, they're more likely to ricochet. Now, why don't I use a full metal jacket round for coyotes? Well, because it'll go right through them. It will do no damage, and that coyote will keep on running. And it might die later at some point in the future just from the wound, but it's not going to put him down instantly like this will. And if we're talking about being humane, we want him to have quick, humane kills. Okay? And so the full metal jacket military round, sometimes referred to as ball ammunition, being fired through an AR-15, will it kill people? Yeah. But this bullet, 30 caliber bullet, not even a 30 caliber, just this bullet, this is a soft point. These are designed to go into something and mushroom. And so they mushroom and tear stuff up. And that's where you get big exit wounds. If you shoot through a deer or shoot through a person even, you can get a big exit wound when these things expand on the inside. These can do far more damage, even at a lower velocity than a small caliber full metal jacket round. Okay? And so the type of the bullet that you're firing has a lot to do with what kind of damage can be done to the target. Okay? So they make a lot of different kinds of bullets. These are home defense bullets for a 9mm that my wife puts, or for a 357, sorry. My wife's got home defense rounds in her 9mm. They expand quickly, so they do a lot of damage, a lot of internal damage, but they don't go through walls and stuff very easy. So they're a good home defense round. These are some 357 rounds that are hollow points. So hollow points do a really good job of doing a lot of damage. Okay, so they're a good defense round. And these are also designed to shoot through short-barreled revolvers, which is what I carry. My 357 is a short-barrel revolver. So they're specifically designed for that, right? This was a soft point bullet. It's going to mushroom. It turns into a mushroom when it enters flesh. This is this 22 caliber long rifle here. That's just a standard soft lead bullet. It's going to kind of ball up and get kind of deformed when it goes into something. And then like these kind of like a mini grenade when they go into something. Like they really tear stuff up. Full metal jacket rounds are going to behave differently. There's the bullets that are called core locked. They're kind of a cross between a full metal jacket and a regular soft point. They got a little bit of a jacket on to help them penetrate farther, but not so much of a jacket that they don't ever mushroom. So they're good for bigger game, like they're tougher game like bears or things like that. Okay, so the bullet type has way more to do with what kind of damage is going to get done to something than necessarily the caliber. Though caliber matters, but remember, most weapons of war, at least today for NATO, most are based on the 223 or the 308. Okay, these two rounds, 223 and 308. So with the 223 round, that's the 5.56. So that's your M16s. Okay, that is your M249 squad automatic weapon. It'll shoot, over 1,000 rounds a minute, and that's those are your two big ones for the 223. But it's also a very popular and well proven and widely used round for Predator and Varmint guns, including the AR-15. Okay, your 308, that's going to be your M60, all right, and the M40 Sniper Rifle used by the Marine Corps. All right, now why do I mention the sniper rifle? Well, look, I want to show you guys something. Okay, so you remember this gun? This was the 308 Winchester. This one, it's also used in the military, in the M60s or in the M40 Sniper Rifle, right? Okay, but this is my elk gun, right? Okay, now check this out. This is also a 308 Winchester. Looks kind of scary, doesn't it? Just because it's green and it looks different, but it's the same caliber gun. It's the exact same caliber gun as this. They're both 308 Winchester caliber or the NATO 7.62 by 5.1. All right. Now, here's where things get tricky when you're talking about military style weapons. Is technically, if you say we need to ban military style weapons, this is a military style weapon. Okay, this is very similar to the M40 sniper rifle. It's almost the same rifle. Almost. It's the same caliber. It's got a composite stock. It's bolt action. Okay. It's got a heavy barrel, which helps with accuracy. The only biggest difference is the scope on this is a 3x9 scope for hunting instead of a big, more powerful scope to shoot accurately at longer distances. But the ballistics and the functionality of this are the exact same as the M40 sniper rifle. But it's not a sniper rifle for me. It's one of my elk guns. It's for big game. It's green because a friend of mine who retired from the Marine Corps and died from COVID left it to me. And so I painted the composite stock green because he retired from the Marine Corps. So I remember him when I hunt with that gun. Okay, but So you got to be careful when you say, well, we need to outlaw any military style gun or ammunition, because two of the most popular hunting rounds are the 308 and the 223. Both have very practical hunting applications, okay? And technically, legalistically, this is a military style rifle, even though a bolt action rifle is the archetype grandpa's deer gun, you know. And they come in different calibers, right? So anytime we're talking about a deer rifle or a hunting rifle, we're usually talking 243, 25-06, 6mm, 7mm, 7mm 08, 270, 300 Savage, 308, 30-06. You know, any of those are all deer guns. You know, you could call them deer guns. 30-30 Winchester. Okay, so be careful, you know, to not make the two things the same, because they're not. Okay, I can have plenty of applications for a 223 round with varmints and predators and it not be a military style rifle per se. Okay, but this is the same caliber as most AR-15s that people want outlawed. Okay, so be specific. Okay, I'm not trying to teach anti-gun people how to argue, but I do want you to use the right terms when you're talking with people. And so you might, instead of saying military style weapons, you might say semi-automatic rifles that accommodate high capacity magazines, or something like that. Does that make sense? Okay. Another quick thing I wanted to spill. AR-15. AR means Armalite rifle. Okay, it means Armalite rifle. It doesn't mean assault rifle. It means Armalite rifle. Any weapon is an assault weapon if you turn it on another human being, whether it's a gun or anything else. Okay, this is a single 6.22 revolver. We're going to check it. Okay, so you remember when I talked about single action revolvers, right? Okay, this is a single action. So to fire it, you have to cock it. Shoots the 22 long rifle round. I carry this on my trap line to dispatch coyotes and traps. Shoot them once in the head, instantly dead, done deal. Okay, small caliber gun, not something people would use for self-defense, not something people would use for most hunting applications. Okay, but last year or 2 years ago, I came face to face with a mountain lion, and this was the only pistol I had, and so I drew it and shot the mountain lion in the head and killed it with one shot at about 10 yards. Right as it was crouching down to pounce at me. Okay, so if I turn this on a person and shoot him in the head with it, can I kill him? Yeah, absolutely. Especially if I shoot him through the eye. That bullet's going to bounce around inside and scramble their brains. Okay, no one would look at this and call it an assault weapon. Okay, but I promise you it'll kill you just as dead if it's misused. Okay, all right, so that's my point on that. AK-47. AK-47 is made by Mikhail Kalashnikov. I think it's the perfect survival rifle in my opinion. But the AK stands for Automatic Kalashnikova, or basically Kalashnikov's automatic rifle in Russian. Okay, it's a 30 caliber bullet. I've got one here. If I can get it out of the mag. Looking, yeah, this is a full metal jacket. That's an AK-47 cartridge, 30 caliber. Okay, so compare it to a 308. It's a smaller 30 caliber cartridge, right? But it's, I mean, a smaller casing, smaller brass, but 30 caliber bullet. Okay, so that's AK-47. It's AK-47 magazine. All right. Talked about hunting rifle, deer rifle. Those are those calibers that are, you know, in that range of 243 up to, you know, 30-06, 308, 300 Win Mag. Those are, anytime someone says deer rifle or hunting rifle, that's generally what they're talking about. Okay. If instead of saying assault weapon, I think we could make more progress in our discussion if we use the terms like military style, high capacity magazine, you know, semi-auto. Because that way we exclude stuff like this bolt action rifle, which could basically be classified as a military style rifle. okay? Because it's virtually identical to the M40 Sniper Rifle. Now, I want to read, I'm about done with this video, and I'm sorry these are kind of long, but there's a lot I want to try to get through in them. But I want to read President Biden's comments recently, and I'm not going to pick on President Biden, but I just want to read what he said. A 9mm bullet blows the lungs out of the body. So the idea that these high caliber weapons, there's simply no rational basis for it in terms of self-protection, hunting. And then he goes on to talk about the Constitution and says that you couldn't buy a cannon and it was never absolute. Okay, so there are some mistakes that our president made in these comments. And after watching this video, I think you could probably point them out. The first one, 9mm bullet blows the lungs out of the body. No, that's not true. Now, with a certain kind of projectile, you may get a big exit wound with a 9mm, and conceivably you could, or theoretically, you could shoot someone in the lungs with them. And if you had a big enough exit wound, and 9mm aren't known for big exit wounds, but you'd have to have the right bullet, you might be able to create enough an exit wound that some lung tissue might come out with the projectile. But the idea of a 9mm bullet blowing the lungs out of the body, it's just not true. And elsewhere he said a .22 is better for self-defense because it will stick in the lungs and they can get the bullet out. But a .22 is a very terrible caliber for self-defense. Okay? And the 9mm is the most popular round for personal protection right now in the United States. And again, the reasons for that is that they're small. The cartridges are small, so they can fit nicely in an internal magazine. The internal magazine goes in, right? They're readily available, and they don't have a lot of recoil. So that helps you be more accurate and stay on target if you need to. Okay? So they're really popular with men and women, but especially with women, because there's just not the same kind of recoil you have from a 40, like from a 45 or something. Okay? All right, then he says there's no rational basis for it in terms of self-protection. That's not true. I just dispelled that, okay? Then he says these high caliber weapons. Well, a 9mm is not really a high caliber. 45, 44, 454, those 45 long Colt, those would be considered high caliber handgun loads. 9mm is not a high caliber. It's a high velocity. It's a fast bullet, but it's not a big bullet, okay? And if you don't believe me, just look at my first video where I compare well, let's just do it right now. Here's a 357. And here's a 9mm. These aren't the best because they're about the same size bullet. Whoops. Okay. But I had a 44 out yesterday. And if you remember the size of that 44 bullet compared to a 9mm bullet, clearly, small caliber. Okay, this is a smaller caliber. It's not a large caliber. So the 9mm bullet blows the lungs out of the body. Not true. I've already talked about how bullets perform, depending on what kind of bullet they are. High caliber weapons, there's no rational basis for it in terms of self-protection. Well, a 9mm bullet's not a high caliber bullet. So he's making a mistake to begin with right there. High caliber handguns like a 45 is a popular self-defense round. It's not the most popular, but there is a self-defense application for them. And then he says no rational basis for it in terms of hunting. Absolutely not true. We already talked about that. The 308, could be considered a high caliber bullet, and it's one of the most popular hunting rounds in existence. And adversely, if he's saying that there's no place for a 308 in hunting or self-defense, and he would prefer small caliber, well, then he's making a case for the 223, which is the most popular caliber of an AR-15. Do you see what I mean? So we have to be clear on terms. Now, if he were to say high velocity rifles that have high capacity magazines and are semi-automatic have no application in hunting, he'd be closer. I think I could still probably make my case why they do have a place in hunting, but I'm willing to not go there today, okay? All right, so, and then finally, the that the Second Amendment was never absolute. You couldn't buy a cannon when the Second Amendment was passed. That's how he ends his statements. And actually, there really weren't any gun regulations to speak of until, I think, the 30s, 1930s. So the Second Amendment was around for quite a while before there started to be any kind of legislation regulating guns and ammunition. Okay, so again, I'm not picking on President Biden. I mean, he's our president. I understand that. I don't have to agree with him, but I'm not going to pick on him. So, but he's incorrect. Okay. All right. I'm going to end this video. There's more I want to talk about, so I'm just going to save it for another video. Thanks for watching. Do me a favor, share this with your friends who may have different views about guns than I do. And if you're one of those people who has different views about guns than I do, and you're watching my video, and if you feel like I was respectful, and if you feel like I was presenting information in a way that at least gave you a better understanding of how guns work and how the kind of terms we use to talk about guns and stuff like that, then leave me a comment and let me know. I would love to hear that. I'd love to hear from you. I don't want to argue with you online about this stuff, but I would love to hear a respectful comment, and I will reciprocate with one of my own back to you. Okay. All right. So until my next video, share this, spread it around, and be reasonable and be kind to each other, even when you disagree. We'll see you.